Hello, everybody, and welcome to the ONOG Summer Circuit EU Qualifier number 5. I'm Osmo, joined by Aquablad. How you doing today, man?
Doing great, man. It's a pleasure to be on here again. It's going to be a very exciting tournament because we've got some players who are kind of up and comers, I imagine, in the EU scene. Are they all EU qualifiers? Because we've had a mixture of kind of nationalities go for this tournament, but I think this is all EU today.
There's one Brazilian player, but the rest are from EU. Leomane is a Brazilian player,
Oh,
but the
yes.
rest are from EU. So I think this is one of the first EU qualifiers that we haven't had a North American player or a Taiwanese player in the top four. So this should be a really good one. Yeah, you said a lot of up and coming players. A lot of the players that are in here have beaten pretty big names coming in. So these guys have a lot to prove today.
Yeah, Leomane, someone who's taken out quite a lot of players on his road to get here today. He took out Freaky from SK Gaming, Super JJ, Complexity, and Hoj. I don't think Hoj is actually signed at the moment, but Hoj, no slight. She's had some excellent results in the past.
Yeah, and yeah, he's not doesn't have a team, but we just saw him in feature tournament number 2 this past weekend, and he actually had quite a bit of success. So I believe he took second place. So he's a front runner for GEICO points. So what's on the line for these players today? It's a $250 prize pool for each qualifier. So 125 for first place, 75 for second, and $50 for third. So they have a chance to win money. They also have a chance to win World Championship points. This is one of those events where we do give away 17 World Championship points per open, which is quite a bit. So the winner does go home with 10. And of course, they're always fighting for a spot in the feature tournaments and some GEICO points to try and get themselves to qualify for that grand finals at PAX with a $20,000 prize pool. So it's lots on the line for these guys today, and I'm sure with a lot to prove, these guys are going to want to find themselves in that feature.
Yeah, and it opens up the door for them to travel to PAX, like you said. There's a massive prize pool there, and it gives them a bit of exposure, which is what you really need as kind of an up-and-coming player these days. Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of pros in the scene right now. There's a lot of players being signed by big teams because Hearthstone's has really exploded over last year. So these little open qualifiers now for this big PAX tournament is an excellent way for you to get your name out there.
Yeah, so far I believe it's Calento and Pavel, who are the two players that have qualified for the grand finals at PAX. So already a pretty good lineup. Pavel, of course, won the feature tournament last weekend, and he's known to be a pretty big ladder hero on the EU servers. So it's already a pretty good lineup for that PAX Prime tournament. So should be in these guys' sights to get there. And the first matchup is going to be between Leomane. Of course, we talked about he's the Brazilian player, and Letmefarm. Leomane from Big Gods, Letmefarm from Team Genji.
Yeah, Letmefarm is someone I've seen a lot. Some in my own tournaments I used to host back in the day when I was running kind of a kind of Hearthstone UK scene. I've seen Letmefarm and his teammates both participate in that event. Whereas Leomane, he's kind of a name I've not heard, but he kind of claims that he's one of the best Latin American players, and he's got a lot of BlizzCon points already to kind of back that claim up with a lot of tournament wins in kind of open events and community events. So he's a player who's really fighting to get noticed, I think. And we're actually going into game number 1 here. We have actually a Rogue Mirror.
Wow. This is... I can't even remember the last time I saw a Rogue Mirror in tournament play. It's been a really long time. Usually in the top 4, there's maybe one player bringing Rogue. Usually 0, but maybe 1. And a lot of times they don't match those decks up against each other. So this will be pretty interesting. And of course, Leomane rocking the bow tie.
Yeah, it's got his
Spiffing
swag
it
on
up.
there.
Yeah.
And speaking of Leomane's Rogue, actually, he's got the Goblin Auto Barbers, which is something that's kind of crept into Rogue quite recently. I think it was Mr. Yagut that started using it. And one of my teammates, Asmodai, he started playing it a lot on stream, and he's a Rogue specialist in his own right. And yeah, it's been getting quite popular recently. I wonder if Letmefarm is sticking to the more traditional oil Rogue here without the Auto Barbers, because the Rogue list can be quite tight sometimes.
Yeah, I find the Goblin Autobar to be a little bit awkward because it's a 2 mana. So a lot of times when you have 2 mana, you have to decide between either playing Goblin Auto Barber or daggering up, and then it makes all your turns awkward. Because if you dagger on turn 2 in preparation to Goblin Auto Barber on turn 3, you're floating a mana unless you have Deadly Poison. So, a lot of times I guess it's just used as an extra body and a way to maybe like act as sort of an extra spell power with Blade Flurry or a replacement for spell power with Blade Flurry. But I've always found it to be an awkward card when I try and put it in my rogue decks.
Yeah, it's almost like the designers didn't think turn two's a very important turn for Rogue. They need to dagger up to start setting up stuff for later on. Let's make a 2-drop that buffs their weapon that they won't have.
Yeah,
It's very strange. But it looks
yeah.
like Letmefarm gets the first sprint here, so he's ahead on hand. Both players haven't really developed much on the board here. We got Leomane dropping the first minion here for Azure Drake. Again, fishing through his deck, but Letmefarm does have that slight edge with having that sprint go off first. So he's dug into his deck much deeper, getting a hold of those options a lot faster than Leomane.
Yeah, and a lot of times this matchup, it feels, comes down to whoever can just piece together 30 damage first. Having something stick on the board is a big deal because it gives you a target to put oil onto. If you get a turn where you play a creature and then your opponent has a turn where they whiff on either removal or a creature of their own, you get a big advantage. And a lot of times it just comes down to one big swing turn where one player gets a huge amount of momentum. And Loatheb is also a key card because most of Rogue's momentum is based off of spells. And if they're not playing a creature and removing on the same turn, a lot of times that's the point where they start to fall behind a little bit.
Fortunately for Leomane here, he has a lot of options when it comes to minions. He's got quite a minion-heavy hand, so he does have an opportunity here to maybe Goblin Auto Barber into SI, maybe clear with a weapon if he fancies using his life as a resource here. But he also has some other options. He could Teacher. I guess he'll want to use his weapon in conjunction with something now so he can keep his Azure Drake alive, because board's going to be very important in this match.
Yeah, he could also just play Loatheb, a counter Loatheb, because he knows his opponent sprinted. So it's probably clogged up with a lot of spells. But if he did that, then he would sort of be wasting, I guess, his Azure Drake by making it trade into the Loatheb, which is pretty inefficient. And yeah, he just goes ahead and plays the Loatheb, and it's going to push some face damage with the Drake.
Yeah, like I said, going to make things a bit awkward. The sprint obviously clogged his hand up with a lot of cards. Usually spells, as you said, with rogues, they pack a lot of spells in there. And looking at Letmefarm's hand, that seems to be the case. He's not going to be able to fire off an Eviscerate here because it's too much mana. Prep's going to be pretty useless. So his hand's actually looking pretty clunky now this Loatheb's come down. So it looks like the correct line of play for Leomane.
Yeah, he could play like could make a big Van Cleef, play Blood Mage, Southsea Deckhand, and Van Cleef, which would make it a 6/6, which is sort of that sweet spot. He'd even get the charge on the Southsea Deckhand. Wouldn't really matter because you just wouldn't be able to do anything except go for 2 extra face damage, which would be a little bit awkward. His other option is just to like play anti-Keelbot, which it looks like he went with. Oh no, he just daggered up. Wow.
Oh wow. I think that is.
He's going to overdraw.
Yeah, not only is he going to overdraw, he's letting a rogue keep something on board without challenge it with his own minions. And Azure Drake as well, buffing that spell power. And he's going to give the board momentum to Leomane here. He doesn't have a Deadly Poison or anything like that to make those Blade Flurries effective, so he might rely on some Falnos shenanigans and throwing Eviscerates around, but it seems quite ineffective to just dagger up that turn.
Yeah, It seems like at least a heal bot would have been beneficial. You're wasting 3 points of the heal, but that's not too big of a deal. Because now Leomane, the only thing he's lacking here is card advantage. That's the only thing that he's behind on this game. He's ahead on board. He's got he's ahead by quite a bit on life total, and he's sort of he's got board, but he's also the aggressor. So he does have a lot of damage sitting in his hand as well. It's gonna be tough for Letmefarm to come back in this, and not just like come back on the board and be able to deal with the board, but also just come back in terms of life total.
Yeah, board's going to be tough to contest here without committing. Oh, he burns a sap drawing too many cards there, not playing anything last turn. Very unfortunate for Let Me Farm there. I think every card's very important in this matchup, and Sap could have played a role somewhere. But he gets a clean kill on this Violet Teacher with that Eviscerate with a Foulness buff. I wonder how he's going to... Is he going to throw the other Eviscerate here, or has he got some other way to deal with his Azure Drake?
Yeah, looks like he's going to prep a Vis and then play Edwin. This is pretty good, because this is actually going to be, I believe, it's 4 cards, so 10-10? Yeah. Which sometimes that all-in play can be really tough for rogues to deal with. The only direct removal they have is, like, Sap, which isn't really removal. It removes it from the board, but doesn't remove it in its entirety.
And yeah, it's looking tough. It's looking tough for Leomane. He's got to find enough damage to deal with this 10-10. He doesn't really want to leave it sticking around. Or you know, Rogue having such an explosive kind of game plan. You don't want to see an oil drop on any of these minions, really, and start punching some damage. So we might see some Blade Flurry shenanigans here, but it's looking hard for him. He's got quite a clunky hand to deal with a 10-10.
So he can try and race. But he'll need to pick up an extra 2 damage somewhere along the way. Because the maximum amount of damage he could have on his dagger would be 7. So with Blade Flurry, that'd be 14 damage. SI, that'd be an extra 2. So he has like 16 damage guaranteed over the next 2 turns. If he could like guarantee himself to find a way to... oh, he's actually going to hold on to the dagger.
Maybe he wants that Auto Barber to do some work here.
Yes, it's so awkward. See, this is one of those plays where you're like, well, I don't have 2 extra mana to get 1 extra damage on my dagger, but I really need that 1 extra damage.
So Let Me Farm actually picks up the oil here, and he has a lot of backup for. He's got that Blade Flurry, like some really explosive burst damage if he wants it. He's got a South Sea if he just wants to put a little bit more pressure on. But this is going to be a humongous amount of damage from Let Me Farm.
Wow. So he actually had 24 damage potentially this turn if he had South Sea, Oil, Deadlied, and Blade Flurried. So he was actually really close to just killing him there. And now I think Leomane's just out of it. The sprint was really a big deal. Even though Let Me Farm had a clunky hand, he got Loatheb and just had to dagger up a turn and ended up actually burning a card. He still just got his sprint off early, which meant that he had so many cards to work with, even when he fell behind on board, that he was able to come back. And the Van Cleef setting up without a way to deal with it from Leomane is really what looked like helped him immensely in this match.
It turns out that being quite patient with the Van Cleef and just daggering up, like we mentioned earlier, was but paid off. I mean, this Van Cleef has done a lot of work on this board. He's done a lot of damage. But he's still going to get cleared up here by the Blade Flurry. Leomane's kind of fighting for his life here. Let Me Farm has the South Sea and the Tinkers, so he just have a lot of damage available to him, and probably enough to take him out.
Exactly, I think, or maybe even 1 over. I just got Golden Rogue, so I should have. Yeah, it's even with the Blade Flurry, it's way more. I should have all of these damage combos ingrained in my head because I've just played way too many games of Rogue over the past week and a half. But yeah, so Let Me Farm. Despite that little hiccup turn in the mid-game, manages to take it. He's going to take a 1-0 lead. And I feel like picking up a win in a Rogue Mirror matchup is a big deal, because it feels like Rogue is one of those decks that sometimes struggles in this meta, because it struggles against Hunter a lot, unless it's like a really heavy mid-range Hunter. And even some players, now that Patron Warrior's been out for a long time, are saying that Patron Warrior actually is doing really well against Rogue. So it's going to be tough.
And Control Warrior is starting to come back into the meta now, I've noticed. You know, Dragon controls are pretty decent, Standard controls pretty decent, and that's a matchup Oil Rogue can really struggle with. So not only Warrior and Hunter, 2 of the most popular classes at the moment in the meta, which can have archetypes that really combat Rogue. They can make it kind of a tough deck to get it going and get to work, but a Rogue mid, like you said, is a good start. You know, kind of show who the best Rogue player is, or who draws sprint first, whichever you want to go with.
Yeah. So, a funny story. I've actually played 320 games of Rogue in the past two and a half weeks. And out of all 320 of them on ladder, I played against one other rogue, one mirror matchup.
Wow.
That's it.
I
That's it.
I think I am 20 games off my Golden Rogue. And a lot of my Golden Rogue came from playing Temper Rogue back in the day. I just loved the
Oh
deck
yeah.
when I first started playing. So a lot of the wins come from that. I did pick up Miracle and Oil along the way, but I really love Temper Rogue. It's quite simple, very simple game plan, and it was good for me when I was a new player to kind of learn the game.
I played Pirate Rogue for a little bit last week. That was exciting. Captain Greenskin's a really fun card.
Alesh actually won a game yesterday in a tournament with Pirate Rogue on stream.
I mean, the deck has strengths. It's basically like Oil Rogue, except it's more creature heavy, and the creatures have synergy, and they're pirates. Like, you just run a little bit less like straight up damage on your spells, maybe a little bit less like weapon buffs, like one oil, and then just throw in a bunch of pirates. Call it a day.
Like you said, there's a bit of synergy there. The ship's cannon, pick off a couple of minions. You got the Dread Corsair, which comes out pretty cheap.
Rex Druid. Turn 2, ship's cannon, they shade. Turn 3, pirate, you pick off their shade. Boom, you win the game. GG. Cleanest way to deal with the shade is a ship's cannon.
New meta. If Druids ever pick up, I'm picking up that Pirate Rogue.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, we're in another mirror matchup, and these guys have just been doing early game patron things, just trying to draw, and it seems like Leomane has a decent advantage here, if only because he's been able to cycle more early, and because he already has Emperor Thaurissan in his hand, so it's in a pretty good spot.
I think Leomane has an interesting decision here. He can go for the Acolyte of Pain and hit the face and clear out the loot hoarder, draw some more cards, and then he can set up more cards to be affected by the Emperor next turn. Or he could... Oh, he's going to do it this way. That's actually better. So instead of just throwing his coin out, getting the Emperor down, he's giving himself an opportunity to draw some more cards, because he doesn't really have any of the key pieces he needs yet. He's got a Patron, he's got a War Song, so, or the Whirlwinds, for example. So I like this play. He's just playing patient, waiting for the right moment to drop that Thaurissan and reduce his hand size.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways this matchup usually goes. One is one player plays a lot of patrons and they win because their opponent doesn't have ways to deal with it. Or two, one player plays a lot of patrons and then the other player counter patrons them. And usually the player that counter patrons, if they can do it the turn right after and not take too much damage from it, comes out on top because they can usually maneuver in a way to where they can block patrons coming from the other board by having their board full and remove a couple by using like execute or like the whirlwind effect from their damage and filling the board. So it doesn't look like it's going to come down to that this game because Letmefarm is the only player with patrons and he doesn't have any way to like propagate them, make more. So we're going to see a little bit of a different style of patron mirror this match.
What's interesting about Letmefarm's hand here, he's got 2 Dread Coursers. Now, Dread Courser is a card I tend to see cycled out of Patron right now. Patron, from a lot of decks I've seen from some of the players I play with, are very focused on draw. Just draw the combo as fast as possible and get the win. So they use the no-mishes, slams, etc. And Dread Courser is kind of found its way out of that style of patron because they're just so draw focused. But here we have Letmefarm having 2, and usually I'd only tech him 1 if I was playing patron, but 2 just seems, I don't know, it just seems really greedy.
Yeah, a lot of times you can get caught with, it feels like a clunky hand early. I can see why, because late game it can act as like a free 5 damage if you have in your Warsong Commander like Frothing Berserker combo, if you have a Deathbite equipped, because it's another target to Whirlwind and you play for free with Deathbite. So in an ideal situation, on paper, it's a fantastic card, and it probably helps Letmefarm win a lot, and so he keeps those situations in his head. But if you have it in your hand right now, you'd much rather right now those be anything else. Ways to make more patrons, more cycle to draw into like your Whirlwind effects or your Warsong commanders. So it's a good card, but I agree. Taking 2 right now feels like it's a little bit greedy because you sort of need the consistency of draw.
I'd be interested in seeing his list actually, because the patron decks become quite tight in slots as of recent. Finding room for those dread courses can be quite tough. A lot of people have cycled out Grom. Some people are keeping him in. He's been cycled out just for a faster play. With double slam coming into it, double unstable ghouls. There's all these kind of little tweaks you can do to patron that makes the decks quite different in a way. Like some people had in Doctor Boom when Patreon was first kind of making its face on
Sludge
the scene.
Belchers too. Just Saying's one of Just Saying's first lists was double Sludge Belcher.
Yeah, it seems to be you cater your patron build to kind of game plan you have. You can have more of a control-y style patron deck where you have these Sludge Belchers and Doctor Booms, a bit of late game to it, and then you kind of win with the patron combo. But I find recent trends are get patron as fast as possible and kind of win the game, which looks like Leomane's deck is looking like at the moment compared to Let Me Farms, which has these kind of dread courses in. So I wonder what else he's got in there. Maybe he has a boom,
Yeah.
maybe some other stuff.
A lot of players have been cutting a one fire Warax as well. Because usually the second fire Warax is dead. Like fireworks sometimes just becomes not a liability later on, but something that you usually just over equip with the Dustbite anyway. So a lot of players are just putting one fire Warax in, just to like have a chance to draw early game to stop aggro. But most of the time you have enough anti-aggro tools that you don't really need the first one or the second one. So most lists that I've seen from tournament players over the past 2 weeks, not ladder decks, have been one fire Warax cut in favor of like the second unstable ghoul or another slam.
No, I agree with that. Fiery Warax, Deathbite is the most important weapon in the deck. So
Yeah.
Fiery Warax can become a bit clunky later on or early on if you just want to set up some Deathbite stuff. And like you said, they have a lot of, with all the unstable ghouls coming into the decks now, they have quite a few ways to deal with the aggro. But yeah, this matchup, they're just drawing cards by the looks of it, just looking for a way to set up a patron. And
Nobody's played patrons yet. This is crazy.
I think you were right from the start. This probably will come down to the person who commits to patron first, and if the next player can counter it with his own patron turn, that player will probably win.
Yeah. It might even seem like Leomane's going to go for like a one-turn kill. Because at this point it's so late in the game that by the time he might wait for Let Me Farm to like go off on with patrons, which makes it really easy for you to one-turn kill because there's 7 creatures on your opponent's board, usually 6 or 7. And so you get so many whirlwind effects with Warsong Commander Frothy and Berserker. And this is actually a lot of damage, so it might just be right now. We were talking about the tech card, so I wasn't even keeping up with how much he had to count. But he has multiple whirlwind effects with Unstable Ghoul and Deathbite, plus Inner Rage and 5 creatures of his own.
And the Armor Smith come down as well, so he generates so much armor.
Yeah. He's even going to get the Deathbite swing to face because this first whirlwind effect is actually going to kill the Dread Corsair. So I'm pretty sure this is enough damage. Pretty sure. 92% sure. And if it's not, then at least he gained a lot of armor. These animations are going to take 10 years to finish because there's an Armor Smith on the board, but
let's just hope he's inputted his final kill before.
I think he has, and the end turn button's yellow, so I think that's lethal. Oh yeah, by far. He has like 40 damage. Let's see. One of them's going to smack for 21, I think, and the other one's going to smack for 19. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, Leomane's going to tie it up. 2 mirror matches to start it off, and it goes one apiece for these players.
So, Patron, very balanced deck, as you can see. Throwing out 40 damage in one turn. There's nothing wrong with that, Blizzard.
40 damage from hand and with a taunt up on the other side.
Yep. There's nothing wrong with that, Blizzard. That seems fine to me. So, Rogue and Hunter remain on Leomane's side, whereas Let Me Farm has the Patron Warrior and the Druid, and it looks like he's going to be queuing up his Hunter here. And looking at the Explosive Trap in hand, it's probably either Hybrid or Face, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel Face does against Patron? Like mid range seems to be having a good kind of 50-50 win ratio against Patron. I find if they can find that kind of early pressure that Patron can't deal with, whereas Face on the other hand is kind of a different style.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a mistake. Not a mistake, but I think it's a mistake not to bring Hunter, but I also think it's a mistake to bring a Hunter that's too fast. I think you need mid-range elements to win in the current environment of Hearthstone right now. Um, just because you need to be able to push through on the patrons, because there's almost every player is bringing Patron Warrior right now, and they do so much better against the pure face hunter, the pure aggressive hunter, than they do against, say, like a hybrid hunter with just a few mid-range elements. Like piloted shredders alone improve the matchup tenfold. Then you add in a high main, and all of a sudden you improve your matchup by another 5-10%. So it's super crazy how the mid-range elements just help you so much in this matchup.
Yeah, Face Hunter, I guess, it's kind of been like you said fizzled out for these hybrids with those those extra cards just helping some of the matchups. And I think mid range is just kind of in a strong place right now with some
Yeah.
of its matchups. Druid's kind of picked up again recently. Mid range hunter generally does pretty well against that. Patron it's kind of 50-50 most of the time. Control Warriors kind of coming back. Mid range hunter
Mhm.
does excellent against that. So yeah, I like where mid range hunter is right now.
You look across the board, it's like what matchups are weak for mid-range hunter? Face hunter.
Yes.
It's like it's only countered by the worst version of it. It's pretty funny the dynamic of how that goes on, and it makes it so when mid-range hunter is the best deck on the ladder, it's like the worst ladder environment ever because it's mid-range hunter players and then face hunter players trying to counter mid-range hunter players, and it just so happens that other people are just throwing in random decks that are countered by both. So it's really funny when that happens. I'm always amused.
It's just a giant smoke fest.
Exactly.
Because that's the aim of the game when you're playing Hunter Mirror. You just want to beat them as fast as it's just a race straight from the start. So
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, it's a very stale environment for a meta
Hmm.
game, especially on ladder. If you get face hunter and mid hunters just trying to counter each other. But looking at the board here, so far I would say this is face hunter.
Hmm.
But it could be hybrid with explosive. We haven't seen enough of the deck yet, but yeah, he's looking pretty decent here. This Robin is going to come down, just contest the board. And like you said, these Patron Warriors usually have enough answers to kind of deal with kind of these aggressive hunter decks, whereas mid-range is a little bit harder because of the Shredders and the Bow and the high mains. There's very sticky minions.
And there's some things that you just can't ignore when you're playing against Patron Warrior. Like Frothing Berserker, you can't ignore for too many turns, for like more than one turn. Armorsmith, you can't ignore. Because you leave an Armorsmith on the board, all of a sudden next turn they have War One effects and they just gained back more damage than you just did. So um, I feel like that's why Face Hunter struggles a lot. Is just because it's just too hard to ig- ignore what they're doing and go face without being punished heavily for it. And he does have a lot of damage here, being able to have this Leox stick on the board and use that with his charge creatures. He's going to put him at 9. But we do see the Armorsmith in the hand, so there's a chance that Letmefarm can gain a reasonable amount of health this turn.
Yeah, the Armor Smith, if he had a Whirlwind combined with it, would be a really scary situation for like Leomane, I think. Gaining all that armor, buffing that frothing up as well. But it looks like he's just going to battle rage here. If he gets a Whirlwind or two, things might look a little bit better for Let Me Farm here. No,
Eh,
no Whirlwind.
yeah, so it looks like it's just going to be an armor up. Now, at this point, when the Hunter's out of cards, if you just armor up every turn, this is like the point of stabilization for the Patron Warrior player. And basically, this is the window of opportunity for the Hunter. This is the stage where you know the war's about to stabilize. You sort of have to have Burn in your hand. If you don't have Burn, usually they'll just out armor and just win the game from there. He does have quick shot, so he's going to be able to cycle through, but he's not going to weave in his hero power this turn. He might just do that because I feel like you need to. You need to be efficient with your damage, and not weaving in hero power every turn is super inefficient.
Yeah, hero power is just such a big part of the Face Hunter's game plan because it acts almost as a card in itself. Because you don't have many draw mechanics in Face Hunter anyway, so you want to be able to utilize your cards as card advantage as much as possible. And he actually
Ouch.
does decide to go for it. And this Thomas Smith bit problematic, but he'll be able to clear up the board here. But he is running out of steam, so if the Let Me Farm stabilizes with a bit more armor, clearing a bit of this board, it's going to look really bleak for Leomane.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a creative way to deal with things. He gets a card, gets to deal with
Still
that
gets to
knife.
armor up. Yeah. And next turn is the key turn. You make it to turn 8 as the Pagan Warrior against Hunter. You're probably gonna win. And he made it to turn 8 with 11 health to spare, which is actually a lot.
All right, so patron shenanigans about to come down. It's like I said, the Hunter's just kind of out of steam. I don't think even Unleash the Hounds will be enough here. Although this scientist, it might be able to clear up a couple of patrons with the explosive trap. And a lot.
That's true. Yeah, but the thing is, he'll just play the second patron next turn and basically, I don't know, because then his board will be full, so he won't get the patron. So yeah, attacking in now is actually better, and he still preserves the charge. So this last patron is going to be able to attack in. All right. Well, I think that just should secure it here. He's got 6, 10 damage. He needs a way to activate. There you go. Inner Rage is going to do it.
No, Garish gonna get the killing blow here, and Honda Creeper is just something. One of the clunky draws Face Hunter kind of gets at this stage of the game. You kind of need to beat them by turn 6, 7 at the most. If it starts getting into heavy later, he's just not going to be able to draw anything. And so Let Me Farm takes another win there with his patron, and he's just got that Druid left. And with Rogue and Face Hunter, I don't know. All Druid needs is a good draw, one game, and he can snowball out of control. So it's looking really good for Let Me Farm here.
Yeah, there are couple of tough matchups. Rogue is probably the tougher one. Usually Rogue does really well against the mid-range Druid, just because you can just build a board and never let them have a creature on the board with tools like Sap, and your removal lines up really nicely. Because usually you deal damage in increments of 2, and usually their cards have health in increments of 2, like Druid of the Claw. But it's the Face Hunter one is going to be the one where I think it's going to come down to, because a lot of players have been saying that Druid has a slight favor against Face Hunter because they have it's sort of the same way, not similar to Patron, because I don't really want to call that, because Druid is not similar to Patron at all, but usually they get to the point where the Hunter has one window of opportunity, and if the Druid can stabilize past that point, a lot of times they can just end the game with combo, which is sort of a similar of how Patron Warriors do it. They stabilize up to a certain point, and then they end the game quickly with their combos. So we'll see how this match goes, but if I had to predict, I think it's going to go to Game 5 and come down to that.
Yeah, I agree. And the Druid will eventually just outvalue the Face Hunter as time goes on with minions, bigger minions, setting the combo much easier. It's a bit different with the Rogue matchup. The Rogue have a lot of tools to deal with the Druid's minions in the mid-range game, and like you said, the spells kind of line up with the health totals. A lot of Druid minions, kind of 6s, 4s. And not only that, these Rogue decks nowadays are very minion-heavy. Not much like Miracle Rogue back in the day, but we see a lot of shredders come down via teachers or barbers in this version. So the Druid's going to have kind of a lot more early pressure to deal with.
Yeah, now this hand is actually a little bit. I don't want to call it awkward because it's actually good, but it's just hard to piece together the damage efficiently, or it's hard to gauge whether or not you're piecing together your damage efficiently. Violet Teacher prep is fantastic, but he really doesn't have anything to prep out on for, like right now with the Teacher. So yeah, just playing the SI is probably better because a strong play in this matchup a lot of times is like Valid Teacher, prep, eviscerate to clear off like a shade or a paladin shredder. Um, but that turn was just a little bit awkward for that to happen.
Yeah, and usually if the Violet Teacher, if the Eviscerate goes and makes a board uncontested for the Rogue, a swipe is usually not enough because they can't throw in a hero power with it to clear up the Teacher. But looking at Let Me Farm's board here, it's looking pretty strong. He's got that shade hidden away.
Oh wow,
But we'll probably get,
this is a play right here.
yeah, that blade. I just about to say that Blade Flurry is gonna make that redundant, as he's just gonna clear out the whole board here and make a giant board himself with these 1/1 tokens, and the
Yeah.
Violet Teacher and the 3/3. So it's looking really good for the Rogue already.
Now he's got to think whether or not he wants to prep out the Blade Flurry or just use Backstab and leave the Shade. But I don't think he could pass up an opportunity to clear off the Shade, and he sequenced it really nicely. You sort of want to preserve creatures more than preserve or more than push face damage, because more than likely those creatures are going to push more face damage. He attacks into the pile shredded with the dagger instead of like blade flaring first and then trading into whatever came out of the pile shredder with the SI agent. Because really preserving those creatures and preserving the board is what makes this matchup strong. And actually, Letmefarm has answers to this. He's got swipe innervate, so you can swipe innervate out of hero power to deal with the Violet Teacher, or swipe innervate out of Wrath to cycle and deal with the Violet Teacher.
You know, and Leomane made quite a commitment with this play. He's committed a lot of his cards to setting up this Violet Teacher board, and like you said, Letmefarm does have an answer to deal with, at least with most of it. He's got that swipe, and then he's got an innovate into hero power or Wrath, depending on what he wants to do. So I would imagine he will probably clear this board, or is he gonna just set something up for? Okay, so it looks like he's just gonna. I quite like this actually. He's just gonna deal with the free, and it gives him an opportunity to swipe hero power next turn and clip the Violet Teacher. So yeah, that seems fine to me.
Leomane has to make the decision here of if he wants to cash in on these 1/1s. How greedy does he want to be with these 1/1s? It is a good play by Letmefarm because he basically telegraphs that he doesn't have swipe, which might make Leomane overextend into it by like using his spells really recklessly. Oh, this is one of those times where Goblin Autobarber is perfect.
But it still doesn't curve.
Yeah, it's true.
Regardless of how perfect it is, it just doesn't curve. It's just one of the awkward things about it. But it worked really well here. Got to clear up that knife joke, and that's probably why it's included. It just probably helped with like Zoo and Hunter clear up those 2 health minions. But we're going to see a value swipe here.
Yeah, it's still going to leave that Goblin Autobarber on the board, so that's still going to be an extra 3 damage that he's going to take. So, I mean, Letmefarm's actually pretty low, and his hand quality is not that great because he has combo, but he hasn't put on enough early pressure to make the combo useful. And yeah, this is just a anti-heal bot, and he's actually lining up to be able to do a lot of damage next turn. He's almost guaranteed to have a creature on the board unless... Oh, never mind.
Unless that Sludge Belcher shows up. Yeah, Sludge Belcher is a great top deck for him. It might have been pretty devastating for Letmefarm if he didn't have that taunt available to him. And he gets to hero power the free one here as well. So this actually makes things really awkward for Leomane. He was looking pretty good up until that point. He had a lot of bursts come down, but now this Sludge Belcher is going to be a bit of a problem. Unless you draw Sap.
Unless you draw a Sap, but... No, Deadly Poison... Yeah, Deadly Poison allows... It feels terrible to have to Deadly and Oil here just to clear off a Sludge Belcher because you're not pushing that 6 damage from the heal bot to face, and that thing's just going to get keepered next turn, and all of a sudden Leomane's in a spot where he's got 0 cards. He's got a prep, but that prep is not useful unless he's got like a sprint or pretty much just sprint at this stage to go along with it.
Yeah, a sprint could potentially win him the game if he draws into a few eviscerates and stuff like that. SI is not really what you want to see. This is tough for Leo. I mean, I think you just have to hold on to this weapon. Maybe
Just
develop.
pass.
Yeah, you don't even want. I don't think you develop the SI because that's 2 damage you could need to finish him off.
He might feel the need to push the 6 damage from the dagger to face now to try and dagger up each turn to push damage. Yeah, I think that's probably a smart play because you're most likely not going to get more than 6 damage out of that dagger, even if you draw into a blade flurry. So he realizes he has to be efficient with his damage and attacking now and trying to beat him down with a fresh dagger each turn might be what's going to win him the game.
You don't really want to pass on 8 mana, not doing anything as a rogue, because that just tells your opponent you've got nothing at all.
Double
And
prep. Oh no, he's been
yeah,
through one. Okay, that's impossible. But still, yeah, and I get it.
so let me farm here. He's got that Druid of the Claw. He can maybe stabilize with that, considering Leomane's hand does nothing right now. And then he has a combo to finish off the game if Leomane can't deal with the board. I mean, the Druid of the Claw protects the 2/4. He could Hero Power and clear the 3/3, but I think that's far too risky. You just get hit by a Eviscerate there, so I think you just have to taunt up here. Maybe even Savage Roar here to push some damage, and maybe set for that lethal next turn. Oh, he goes for charge, okay.
I think this is okay. You're gonna force him to take the 4 damage from the Druid Claw anyway. This is the safest way to play because he held onto a card last turn, so that card could be Sap. Wow, Asher Drake is actually a really good draw off the top.
I think the only problem with the
deck in, getting close.
yeah, the 4/1 does make him vulnerable to Fan of Knives, but because he had, like I said, he had one card in hand which did nothing the turn before, I guess he saw it was a safe opportunity to play this Druid of the Claw and
Yeah.
clear up the board rather than just hoping he doesn't have a sap.
Yeah, Fan of Knives would have been played nearly automatically the previous turn. I think, just a cycle. But Let Me Farm's actually getting pretty close to a lethal here. He's got 18 damage right now. Oh, the Harrison. That's a pretty sick draw. Just because it gets him further into his deck. Doesn't really matter what he's getting rid of at this point since Leomane's completely out of cards. Alright, Savage Roar's coming out.
Yeah, I guess to clear, guess to push a little bit more damage. And he still has that combo weight. And Leomane's reaction to that Harrison was priceless. He just did not look impressed at all.
Mm. Hey.
Oh.
You can't sap
No.
a Harrison, but you have to. Oh no. Just to stay alive, he has to sap a Harrison. And he knows that this is just going to allow Let Me Farm to take away a dagger if he can't draw into it. But yeah, just the heal is going to come out here. Pretty much going to lock out the game for Leomane. I don't think there's much he can do to come back in this. It's just he's getting closer and closer to dying from combo. Even if he draws Sprint, I don't know if he'll be able to piece together 11 damage before the time comes where he just gets comboed out of the game.
Well, he gets out of Azure Drake, you might be able to find an Eviscerate. Just gets the backstab, it won't be enough. As if Leomane had a kind of an important turn during that set where that Violet Teacher play was either going to swing the game heavily in his favor, or Let Me Farm would have a response and swipe and something else and be able to clear his board, and that left kind of an awkward hand for Leo. But I think the biggest part of that game was that Sludge Belcher. That Sludge Belcher just changed everything for this whole match.
Yeah, alright, so Let Me Farm is going to take the first match. He's going to move on to the finals of the day, so he guarantees himself at least 5 World Championship points and at least $75 and 9 GEICO points. You could get more. First place, of course, is $125, 10 World Championship points, and 10 GEICO points. So Leomane, unfortunately, he'll move down to the 3rd and 4th place match, where he'll compete for basically $50 is what it comes down to. 3rd gets 50, 4th gets nothing. So he'll face the loser of the next match, but really well played by Let Me Farm, taking a 3-1 victory against a pretty strong deck lineup from Leomane with Hunter Rogue Patron was pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
You know, Let Me Farm had some really clutch moments during that game where he's just, like you said, managed to stabilize and just keep things going. And I think that Rogue game at the start was a good one to watch. It gave you, if you're not familiar with Rogue and or Rogue Mirrors, it gave you a good idea on how important Sprint is in that matchup.
Hmm.
And the patron game was excellent as well because it just shows you how ridiculous Frothing Berserker is with the right combination of cards.
Yeah, and I think the next match is going to be between. Oh man, these guys' names are really hard to pronounce. Psyche, Psyche,
Cycry? Cytry? I'll go with that.
versus Demo Senok. I think is how you pronounce it. We'll try and
Yeah,
get
I go.
confirmation during the break. Both these players are Eastern European, Psyche from Czech Republic and Demo Senok from Russia. So that should be a really interesting matchup. Both these players have beaten a lot of notables uh, coming into the final four of this tournament, and they'll compete for a spot in the finals against Letmefarm. But we are going to go to a quick break before we do that. But keep in mind, guys, head over to geico.onog.gg. You have a chance to win an official TSM PC. You can also get a GEICO quote. And signing up for the newsletters and entering to win an official TSM PC is a good way to let GEICO gauge how much support they're getting for their esports endeavors. So helps out a lot. You can also get information about how GEICO points work in the tournament in general. So head over there during the break. But we are going to be back in just a few minutes for the next match. But don't go anywhere. More Summer Circuit action continues right after this.